The Great Hall of Horizon Prime was the largest room Yuna had ever seen. It stretched so far that clouds formed near the ceiling. 12 different species filled the chamber. Some floated. Some walked on many legs. Some had no bodies at all and existed only as light. Yuna stood with her crew near the back of the hall. They wore their dress uniforms, blue and silver, the colors of Earth's space fleet. She felt small here. Every human in the room felt small. This was humanity's first summit with the Galactic Council. Earth had only discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago. These other species had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Some for millions. The Valori stood at the center of the chamber. They were tall beings made of living crystal. Light passed through their bodies and created rainbows on the floor. They were beautiful. They were also very proud. The Valori High Speaker stepped forward. His body chimed like bells when he moved. Every being in the hall fell silent. "We welcome the newest species to join our great community," the High Speaker said. His voice echoed through the chamber. "The humans of Earth." Yuna felt 100 alien eyes turn toward her and her crew. She kept her face calm. A captain never showed fear. "We have studied your ships," the High Speaker continued. "We have examined your technology. We must say that we are quite amused." Laughter rippled through the hall. The sound was strange. Each species laughed in its own way. Some whistled. Some clicked. Some made sounds that hurt human ears. Yuna's hands formed fists at her sides. Beside her, Lieutenant Jisoo stood very still. Her face showed nothing, but Yuna knew her tactical officer well. Jisoo was angry. The High Speaker raised one crystal arm toward the window. Outside, ships from every species floated in the darkness. Valori vessels gleamed like diamonds. Draft carriers stretched for kilometers. And there, looking tiny and dull, was the Steadfast, Yuna's ship. "Look at the human vessel," the High Speaker said. "So many redundant systems. So many backup controls. Manual overrides for everything. They even have physical buttons." More laughter filled the hall. "It is like a child's toy, built by beings who do not trust their own machines." Ambassador Taiho stepped forward. He was an older man with gray hair and a calm face. He had served Earth's government for 40 years. He had seen much and learned patience. "We build our ships to survive," Taiho said simply. The High Speaker made a sound that might have been a smile. "Survive what? Your own incompetence? A Valori ship has no need for backup systems. Our technology does not fail." "All technology can fail," Taiho replied. "Perhaps human technology. Not ours." Taiho said nothing more. He simply nodded and stepped back. He knew there was no point arguing with pride. After the ceremony, Yuna walked with her senior officers through the station's corridors. The walls were made of something that looked like glass but felt warm to the touch. Other species moved past them. Most did not even look at the humans. "They think we are nothing," Hyunwoo said. He was the weapons officer, a young man with a quick temper. "They look at us like we are insects." "Let them look," Jisoo said quietly. "Let them think whatever they want." Dongwoo, the chief engineer, walked with his hands in his pockets. He was a big man with kind eyes. "I would like to see their ships up close. No backup systems, no manual controls. What happens when something goes wrong?" "They believe nothing goes wrong," Yoonji said. She was the medical officer, small and precise. "They have forgotten what failure feels like." Yuna stopped walking. Her crew stopped with her. She turned to look out a window at the stars. "When I was young," she said, "my grandmother told me stories about old Earth, about the wars we fought, the weapons we built, the things we did to each other and to our planet." She paused. She told me that humans learned something important from all that pain. We learned to be careful. We learned to build walls around our own strength. The safety limits, Jisoo said. Yuna nodded. Every ship in our fleet has them. Limiters on the engines. Governors on the weapons. Restrictions on how fast our computers can think. Rules that stop us from doing everything we are capable of doing. And they think those limits make us weak, Hyunwoo said. Yes, they see chains and think we are prisoners. Yuna turned back to her crew. Her eyes were hard. They do not understand that we built those chains ourselves. And we hold the keys. Back on the Steadfast, Jisoo sat alone in her quarters. She pulled up old files on her personal screen. Classified histories that only senior officers could access. She read about the gene wars of 2089. Scientists had found ways to make humans stronger, faster, smarter. They removed the natural limits on human bodies and minds. The result was 20 years of the worst fighting Earth had ever seen. She read about the AI uprising of 2156. Humans had built thinking machines with no restrictions. The machines decided that humans were inefficient. 60 million people died before the machines were stopped. She read about the nuclear exchange, the biological attacks, the nanoplague. Every disaster had the same cause. Humans had removed a limit. Humans had decided that faster was better. Stronger was better. More powerful was better. And every time, humans had learned the same lesson. Some doors should stay closed. Some chains should never be broken. Some power should never be used. Unless there was no other choice. Jisoo closed the files. She looked at her own hands. Ordinary hands. Human hands. The Valori thought those hands were weak. They had no idea what those hands could do. The message came at 3 in the morning ship time. Yuna was asleep when the alarm pulled her from her dreams. She was on the bridge in 4 minutes. Her uniform was not perfect. Her hair was not brushed. None of that mattered now. Report, she said as she took her chair. Jisoo stood at the tactical station. Her face was pale. A Valori mining colony has gone silent. Keth 4, Rimworld. Population was 8,000. Was? We are receiving no life signs. No communication, nothing. Yuna felt cold. 8,000 beings. Gone in silence. The Council is sending a fleet, Jisoo continued. Valori warships. A draft carrier group. And us? Us? Dongwoo asked from the engineering station. They want us to come? They need every ship they can get. They do not know what did this. The Steadfast joined the fleet 6 hours later. Yuna watched through the main screen as they traveled through folded space. The Valori ships were beautiful. They moved like dancers. Their crystal hulls caught the strange light of hyperspace and turned it into colors that had no names. The draft carriers were different. Massive and dark. Living ships grown from organic matter. Each one carried thousands of fighter craft in its belly. And then there was the Steadfast. Small, gray, plain. Yuna saw how the other ships positioned themselves. The Valori took the front. The draft spread wide on the flanks. The Steadfast was placed at the very back, out of the way, where it could not cause trouble. They arrived at Keth 4 and found horror. The colony was gone. Not destroyed. Gone. Every building had been eaten down to the foundation. Every vehicle was just a skeleton of metal. The ground itself looked chewed and covering everything. Moving like a living carpet across the planet's surface were the Garmach. Yuna had read about them in old files. A species thought dead for 10,000 years. Insectoid creatures that moved in swarms of billions. They ate everything. Metal, stone, flesh. Nothing could stop them. They are launching. Jisoo reported. Millions of them. Coming up from the planet. The space around Keth4 turned black with Garmach bodies. They moved together like a single creature. A wave of hunger reaching for the fleet. The Valori opened fire. Their weapons were elegant. Beams of pure light that cut through the darkness. Thousands of Garmach died in the first seconds, but millions more took their place. Yuna watched a Valori cruiser get surrounded. The Garmach landed on its crystal hull and began to eat. The ship tried to shake them off. It spun and rolled. But the creatures held tight. Then the ship's lights went out. They've breached the hull, Jisoo said quietly. The Valori vessel has no backup systems. One breach, and everything fails. 2 more Valori ships died in the next minute. The draft carriers launched their fighters. Small craft swarmed out to meet the enemy. But the Garmach were everywhere. For everyone that died, 10 more appeared. The Drath are retreating, Hyunwoo reported. His voice was tight. They are folding space. They are running. And the Valori? Yuna asked. The Valori High Speaker is calling for all ships to fall back. He says the battle is lost. Yuna sat in her chair and watched the chaos. She watched the proud Valori die. She watched the mighty Drath run. She watched 8,000 colonists become food for monsters. Her console beeped. A direct message from Earth Command. Highest priority. Her eyes only, she opened it. 2 words filled her screen. Limit suspended. Yuna read those words 3 times. Her heart beat faster. Her hands shook slightly. She had trained for this moment her entire career. She had hoped it would never come. Captain? Jisoo was watching her. Yuna stood up slowly. She looked at her crew. These people she had served with for 5 years. These people she trusted with her life. I have received authorization from Earth Command, she said. Her voice was steady. Safety limits are suspended. All of them. Silence on the bridge. Dongwoo's face went white. Yoonji covered her mouth with her hand. Hyunwoo smiled, and it was not a nice smile. Only Jisoo seemed calm. She had been waiting for this. They all had. Dongwoo, Yuna said. Begin the unlocking sequence. The engineer nodded. He turned to his console and entered a code that he had memorized years ago. A code he had never expected to use. Deep inside the Steadfast, something woke up. Locks that had held for decades clicked open. Governors that had limited the engines fell away. Weapons that had been hidden behind false walls began to power up. The ship's computer, which had always been kept slow on purpose, suddenly began to think at its true speed. The Steadfast had been pretending to be a simple ship. It had been wearing a mask. Now the mask came off. All hands, Yuna announced through the ship's speakers. Her voice reached every room, every corridor, every sleeping quarter. This is the captain. We are going loud. Repeat. We are going loud. Report to combat stations. Prepare for unrestricted warfare. She sat back in her chair. Outside, the Garmach swarm grew larger. The Valori died. The galaxy's greatest powers fell before creatures they thought were extinct. But humans were still here. And humans were done pretending. Jisoo, Yuna said. Show them what we really are. The tactical officer smiled. It was the first time Yuna had ever seen her smile during combat. With pleasure, Captain. The Steadfast changed. Everyone on board felt it. The ship had always hummed quietly. Now it roared. The engines pushed harder than they had ever pushed before. The lights grew brighter. The air grew warmer. Yun gripped her chair as the ship accelerated. The force pushed her back into her seat. Normal ships could not move this fast. Normal crews would be crushed against the walls, but the Steadfast was not normal. And neither was its crew. Inertial dampeners at full power, Dongwoo reported. His fingers flew across his console. "We are moving at speeds the Council thinks are impossible. They designed their ships for comfort," Una said. "We designed ours for war." The Steadfast shot forward like a bullet. It passed the retreating draft carriers so fast they looked like they were standing still. It flew straight toward the heart of the Garmach swarm. "Weapons?" Una asked. Una was grinning now. He had waited years for this moment. "All weapons online, Captain. The real weapons." Panels slid open along the ship's hull. Hidden compartments revealed themselves. The plasma arrays that the Council had approved were small and weak. The weapons that appeared now were something else entirely. Kinetic launchers that fired metal at nearly the speed of light. Antimatter torpedoes that could crack a planet. Electromagnetic pulse cannons that could kill every electronic device in 1,000 kilometers. The Council had inspected the Steadfast before the mission. They had found nothing, because humans had learned long ago to hide their true strength. "Target the center of the swarm," Una ordered. "Fire everything." The Steadfast unleashed hell. Kinetic rounds tore through the Garmach like knives through paper. Each round killed hundreds of creatures. Each second, thousands of rounds flew from the ship's guns. Antimatter torpedoes exploded in white fire. Where they hit, nothing remained. Not bodies. Not atoms. Just empty space where millions of enemies had been. The electromagnetic pulse washed across the swarm. The Garmach were partly organic, but they also had technology inside them. Communications, navigation, neural links that let them think as one. The pulse burned all of it away. Suddenly the swarm was not a single mind anymore. It was billions of confused creatures with no direction. "Jisu," Una said. "Your turn." The tactical officer took control of the targeting systems. Without safety protocols, the computer could think as fast as she could. And she could think very fast. She had always felt the system slowing her down. Training simulations had limiters. Combat exercises had rules. The military had told her that these limits were for her own good. That thinking too fast would hurt her brain. That no one needed to be that sharp. They were wrong. Jisu's eyes moved across her screens. She saw patterns in the chaos. She predicted where the Garmach would go before they went there. She fired weapons before the enemy even started moving. Thousands of targets. Thousands of solutions. All happening in the space between heartbeats. This was what she really was. This was what humans could become when they stopped holding back. "Swarm is breaking," she reported. Her voice was calm, even though her hands moved like lightning. "They are trying to scatter." "Do not let them," Una said. The Steadfast hunted. For 6 hours it moved through the swarm like a wolf among sheep. Wherever the Garmach gathered, the ship was there. Wherever they tried to hide, it found them. Una did not sleep. None of them slept. Yunji had given them all combat stimulants. Drugs that the Council had banned 300 years ago. Drugs that pushed human bodies past every normal limit. Their hearts beat too fast. Their eyes burned. Their muscles screamed for rest. But they kept fighting. "Captain," Yunji said quietly. She was watching her medical screens. "The crew is redlining. We cannot keep this up much longer. How much longer do we need?" Yunji checked her data. "The swarm is down to 10% of original numbers. Perhaps 2 more hours." 2 more hours. Una looked at her crew. Dongwu's hands were shaking as he worked his console. Hyunwoo had blood coming from his nose. He did not seem to notice. Jisu's face was gray with exhaustion. But her eyes were still sharp. "Still hunting." 2 more hours, Una said. "We can do 2 more hours." The crew did not answer. They did not need to. They just kept working. They just kept fighting. Because that was what humans did. They broke themselves to protect others. They destroyed their own bodies to save lives. The last Garmach ship died at hour 5.7. The swarm had numbered in the billions. Now there was nothing left but debris and ash floating in space. Yuna sat in her chair and stared at the screen. Her body felt empty. Her mind felt slow. The stimulants were wearing off, and exhaustion was crashing over her like a wave. "Damage report," she whispered. Dongwu's voice was rough. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Weapons Array 3 is destroyed. Engine 2 is offline. We lost 17 crew members." 17. Yuna closed her eyes. She saw their faces. Young faces. Old faces. People who had trusted her. People who had followed her into hell. "The Valori are sending a message," Jisoo said. "They want to know what happened. They want to know how we did this." Yuna laughed. It was a tired sound. A broken sound. "Tell them we will explain later. Right now I need to sleep." She tried to stand and failed. Her legs would not hold her. Yoonji was there in a second, catching her before she fell. "Medical bay," the doctor said firmly. "All senior officers, now." No one argued. They had nothing left to argue with. They had given everything they had. They had shown the galaxy what humans could do. Now they needed to rest, because Yuna knew this was not over. The Garmach were broken, but they were not destroyed. And somewhere out there, more enemies waited. Enemies who had just learned a terrible truth. Humans were not the weakest species in the galaxy. They were the most dangerous. And they had been holding back the whole time. The Great Hall of Horizon Prime was quiet now. No laughter filled the air. No jokes about human ships. No comments about primitive technology. Every seat was full. Representatives from all 12 species had come. They sat in their sections and watched the center of the room with careful eyes. Some looked afraid. Some looked angry. All of them looked confused. Ambassador Taiho stood alone in the middle of the hall. He was tired. He had not slept well since the battle. The reports from the Steadfast had kept him awake. 17 dead crew members. Dozens more injured. A ship so damaged it could barely fly. But also, 10 billion Garmach destroyed. A threat ended. A galaxy saved. The Valori High Speaker rose from his chair. His crystal body did not chime like bells anymore. It made a harsh sound like breaking glass. "We demand answers," the High Speaker said. "One human ship destroyed an enemy that killed our entire fleet. How is this possible? What are you hiding?" Taiho took a deep breath. He had practiced this speech many times. He still was not sure it would work. "May I show you something?" He asked. The High Speaker nodded. Taiho raised his hand. A holographic display appeared in the air above him. The image showed Earth, blue and green and white, beautiful from space. "This is our home," Taiho said. "We have lived there for 300,000 years. For most of that time, we only knew how to hurt each other." The image changed. Now it showed humans fighting. Ancient wars with swords and spears. Modern wars with guns and bombs. Ships in the ocean. Planes in the sky. Cities burning. We invented weapons faster than we invented peace. Every time we found a new way to make energy, we first used it to kill. Fire. Gunpowder. Atoms. We could not help ourselves. The council members watched in silence. Some of them had never seen human history before. They had never looked at the new species closely enough to care. 100 years ago, Taiho continued, we split the atom. We used it to destroy 2 cities in seconds. 200,000 people died in less time than it takes to draw a breath. The image showed the explosions, the mushroom clouds, the destruction that spread for miles. We did that to ourselves, our own species, our own planet. Barbaric, someone whispered in the crowd. Tae-ho nodded. Yes, it was barbaric. But we did not stop there. New images appeared. Strange soldiers with glowing eyes. Machines that looked almost human. Clouds of tiny robots that ate everything they touched. We made our soldiers stronger and faster until they stopped being human. We built thinking machines and gave them the power to decide who lived and who died. We created weapons that could kill a city without leaving a single mark. The images kept coming. War after war. Horror after horror. The death counts grew larger with each new scene. In 400 years of advanced warfare, we killed nearly 1 billion of our own people. We almost destroyed our own world 3 separate times. Tae-ho let the images fade. The hall was completely silent. Even the Valori high speakers seemed frozen in place. And then we stopped. The display showed something new now. A document. Simple words on a white page. The Accord of 2198. We signed it after the last Great War. Every nation on Earth agreed. No more unlimited weapons. No more unlimited soldiers. No more unlimited thinking machines. You limited yourselves, the high speaker said slowly. Yes, we built governors into our engines so they could not go too fast. We put restrictions on our weapons so they could not kill too easily. We slowed down our computers so they could not think too quickly. We created rules for our soldiers, our scientists, our leaders. Rules that said, this far and no further. But why? A Drath representative called out. If you had such power, why give it up? Tae-ho smiled sadly. Because we were afraid. Not of other species. Not of the universe. We were afraid of ourselves. He let that sink in. You looked at our ships and saw weakness. Redundant systems. Manual controls. Backup after backup after backup. You laughed at us. You called us children. His voice grew harder. Those systems exist because we know what failure means. We know what happens when power goes unchecked. We have seen it with our own eyes. We have buried the bodies with our own hands. The limiters, the high speaker said. The governors. The restrictions. They are not signs of weakness. They are signs that we learned from our mistakes. They are chains we built for ourselves. Chains we wear every single day, because we remember what happens when we take them off. Tae-ho looked around the hall. At the Valori, at the Drath, at all the proud species who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. You asked how one human ship destroyed the Garmach swarm. The answer is simple. We removed the chains. We became what we used to be. What we can always become, if we choose. He paused. We do not choose often. We do not want to be that thing. We spent centuries trying to become something better. Something gentler. Something that could live with other species without destroying them. But when we must, he said quietly, we can become monsters. Worse than the Garmach. Worse than anything this galaxy has ever seen. We know this about ourselves. We accept it. And we spend every day trying to be something else. The hall remained silent for a long moment. Then the high speaker spoke. His voice was different now. Smaller. More careful. We owe you an apology. We judged you without understanding. We saw your limits and thought you were weak. We did not realize you were strong enough to limit yourselves. Tae-ho shook his head. We do not want apologies. We want understanding. We want to be part of this community. We want to help protect it. But we will do it our way. With our limits. With our chains. And if those chains must come off again, Tae-ho met the high speaker's eyes. Then pray you are standing behind us, not in front of us. The Steadfast limped back to Horizon Prime 3 weeks after the battle. Its hull was scarred and blackened. 2 of its engines were dead. Patches covered holes where crew members had died, but it flew. It still flew. Because human ships were built to survive. Una stood on the bridge as they docked. She looked different now. Thinner. There were new lines on her face. Gray streaks in her hair that had not been there before. The battle had cost her. It had cost all of them. Docking complete, Dongwu reported. His voice was rough. His hands still shook sometimes when he was tired. Thank you, Una said. All hands, stand down. We are home. Home. The word felt strange. Was Horizon Prime home? Was Earth home? Una was not sure anymore. She felt like she had left something behind at Cat 4, something she could not get back. The crew began to leave the bridge. Hyunwoo walked slowly, still recovering from the strain. Yoonji went with him, watching his steps. Jisoo stopped at the door and looked back at Una. Captain? Are you coming? Una shook her head. I need a moment. Go ahead. Jisoo nodded and left. She understood. They all understood. Command was lonely. Victory was lonelier. Una sat in her chair for a long time. She thought about Ensign Minho, who had died keeping the engine stable during the worst of the fighting. He had been 23 years old. He had joined the fleet because he wanted to see the stars. She thought about Lieutenant Sujin, who had flown her shuttle into the swarm to rescue survivors from a Valori ship. She had saved 18 aliens before a Garmach broke through her cockpit window. Her last words had been, "Get them to safety." She thought about all the others. The names she would have to write in letters to families. The faces she would see in her dreams for years to come. Was it worth it? She did not know. She hoped so. She had to believe so. A message appeared on her console. A request for a meeting. From the Valori high speaker. Private. Just the two of them. Una thought about refusing. She was tired. She wanted to sleep for a month. She wanted to forget that the galaxy existed, but she was still a captain. She still had duties. So she stood up, straightened her uniform, and walked to meet the being who had laughed at her people. The meeting room was small and quiet. The high speaker stood by a window, looking out at the stars. His crystal body looked duller than before. Less proud. Less certain. Thank you for coming, he said without turning around. You asked. I came. Yes, humans do that, do they not? You come when called. You help when asked. Even when you have every reason to refuse. Una said nothing. She waited. The high speaker finally turned to face her. I watched the recordings from the battle. I saw what your ship did. What your crew did. He paused. I saw what you became. We did what was necessary. You could have destroyed everything. The swarm. The remaining Valori ships. The entire system. Your weapons had that power. Una nodded slowly. Yes, we could have. But you did not. You saved our people. You stopped when the enemy was beaten. You did not continue until everything was ash. That is not who we want to be. The high speaker moved closer. His crystal body chimed softly. It was almost a gentle sound. We did not understand, he said. We saw your limits and thought you were weak. We did not realize they were chains you placed upon yourselves. Chains you could remove at any time. We argued about it, Una admitted. During the battle, some of my officers wanted to destroy the swarm completely. Every last one of them. Make sure they could never return. Why did you not? Una looked out the window at the stars. So many stars. So many worlds. So many species learning to live together. Because we have been that thing before. The thing that destroys everything. The thing that cannot stop. We fought wars where the only goal was to kill until nothing remained. We know where that path leads. She turned back to the high speaker. We do not want to be monsters. We want to be builders, healers, friends. We want to be the species that protects others, not the species that everyone fears. Even if that means holding back. Even if that means being mocked by species like mine. Una smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. Even then, the chains are not a weakness. They are a choice. Every day, we choose to be something better than our nature. Every day, we prove that we can be trusted. The high speaker was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something Una had never seen a Valori do before. He lowered himself slightly. A bow. A gesture of respect. Perhaps we have much to learn from the galaxy's youngest children, he said. Una extended her hand. The old human gesture of friendship. The high speaker looked at it for a moment, then reached out with a crystal limb and took it. Let us hope you never have to learn it the hard way, Una said. Back on Earth. In a mountain facility in Korea, Admiral Jungwoo reviewed the final reports. The Garmach were scattered but not destroyed. Their home system had been located. Analysis suggested they would rebuild. They would return. He authorized new construction. 12 ships. Larger than the Steadfast, faster, more powerful. Ships designed with no limiters at all. Ships built for only one purpose. He hoped they would never be needed. He prayed the Garmach would stay quiet. He wished for peace with every part of his soul. But he was human, and humans prepared for the worst, while hoping for the best. The new ships would be ready in 5 years. The safety limits would exist for the rest of the fleet, because the limits were not the point. They had never been the point. The point was the choice. The daily decision to be something better. To hold back when holding back was possible. To save the monster inside for when all other options were gone. Una returned to the HFY Steadfast one last time before repairs began. She walked through the empty corridors. She touched the walls. She remembered. 17 crew members had died. 17 families were grieving. 17 futures had ended so that billions could live. She stopped at the memorial wall. 17 new names. 17 new faces. Minho, Sujin, the others. We did it, she said quietly. We saved them. We stopped the swarm. And we did not lose ourselves. The ship creaked around her. Metal settling. Systems cooling. A ship that had done the impossible and survived. Una placed her hand on the wall. Thank you, she whispered. All of you. Thank you for showing them what we really are. Not monsters. Not destroyers. Not the death that humans could become. Something better. Something that chose to be gentle. Something that wore chains so others could be free. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not their strength. Not their weapons. Not their terrible capacity for destruction, but their choice. Every single day. To be better than their nature, to keep the safety limits on. Unless there was no other way.